Hi everyone, and welcome to my video where we're going to be covering controllers in your ASP.NET web applications, specifically in web forms. So let's get started. So controllers, they're responsible for receiving a request from a user or application and acting upon that request. So we'll go over what requests are in, I think, in the next video, but just keep that in mind. A controller may return a response back to the user or application. So this can be like a boolean, a string, a custom object, a stream, or whatever. So think about this controller as having just a bunch of functions within it, and external applications, or your website can make requests to these controllers. The controllers act upon these requests, and then they return certain objects. These controllers should have very minimal amounts of code, so around like 5 lines or so, and it really shouldn't have any logic. A controller, and I think I'll go over this in a little bit, but a controller shouldn't have any logic. It should just be handling the headers, returning sending doing some work in your business logic layer by calling the business logic layer, and then returning a response back to whatever submitted the request. And a controller is just a function that just contains routes. So for instance, here you see like https mywebsite.com. This is your web URL, and then your controller is this orders right here. So this would be your orders controller. And API and then /orders is just a route. API /orders /ID is another route. And ID here, this is you would specify the specific order ID. But we'll go over this in a little more detail here in a minute with some screenshots. So to create a controller, all you have to do is first you should create yourself a controllers folder. So just right click on your project here, select new, and then just add a controllers folder. Then once you do that, right click on controllers on your controllers folder and click add, and then select new item. And then over here you'll type controller, and then this will come up, web API controller class v2.1, and then give this a name. So for instance, in my last screenshots, or in my last slide, you saw I had an orders controller because it had an orders route. So for instance, I gave my controller name orders controller.cs, and so orders is going to be the route that you give it. So yeah. So first thing that you have to do though, when you if you want to have controllers within your web forms application, is you have to create this web API config class. And the way that you do this is you just go to your app start here on your project. You should have app start, right click on it, and just create a new class. And then this will come up. And so then just add this function over here, public static void register, and then just do this. And what this will do is it will help your application, your controller understand where to route the request to. And then just real quick, a keynote here is API /controller /ID. So remember how over here we had API /orders. So this is where the API is coming from. So you can type, mywebsite.com /abcd or blah or whatever, and then your controller. So here you could do like ABCD or like whatever, and then like from what I just showed, that would be the route. And then the controller would be the controller name, which is specified. I'll show you this to you guys in a sec. And then ID here. And so after you create this web API config, you'll want to go into your global ASAX file and you'll want to add this line right here as the last line: global configuration.configure, and then web API config.register. So now this is going to actually register these routes with your application. And you may need to import some libraries. I think you'll need to import system.web.http. So just make sure that you do that when you're doing this. So here's a picture of of the controllers folder, and here's the orders controller. And when we go into the orders controller, when you create a new one, it'll just have like a bunch of generic functions. What I did was I just deleted all of them, and I just created all of these. So this is what a controller looks like. When you create it, you'll see that it extends the API controller here. So first thing that you'll notice is that I gave it a route prefix. This was defined by me. So again, so you'll see here API/orders. This correlates to this API/controller. So we're saying here that the controller is going to be called orders. That's what we're telling it here. We have a constructor. This is our BLL. And then here we have a HTTP GET. So I'll show different HTTP verbs here throughout this presentation, but just keep in mind that right now we have HTTP GET here. And what this is going to do is when you send it a GET request, this is what's going to execute. And if you send, you'll notice that this has a route. This is also an HTTP GET request, but this has a route. This also has a route. This one right here doesn't have a route, which means that by default, if you send a GET request to this API/orders, so to this right here, if you send this a GET request, it's going to execute this function, return orders.getOrders, or order BLL.getOrders. So this is going to return me all the orders. Whereas here I'm specifying a route. So here I'm saying if the user is requesting API/orders/ and then they put in an ID here. So this ID right here correlates to this long ID here. So just keep in mind that the names here have to match. And when you do that, API/orders and then /1 or /2 or whatever, you give it a long number, it'll execute this function, which will then in turn call get order, and then it'll pass it in an ID, and it'll return an order right here, an order type. So that's what get does, and get is used for retrieving information from the application, from the database. So think of it as a select. Whenever you're selecting information, you want to use the HTTP GET verb. Here I have an example of HTTP POST. What POST is when you want to insert something into your database, into your application, and then here's the route. So add order. So now if someone goes to API/orders/add order and they submit it using a POST request, it's going to execute this function. Now if they did API/orders/add orders using a GET request, it will not execute this function. It'll say that there's no function that exists like this. So let's see if I have that here. No. So it'll execute this create order, and it'll call this function dot create order, and then it'll do order request order, and then so this right here. So this right here is coming from the query. So this is a query string parameter, and you can tell that this is a query string parameter because it's in the route, right? It's in the route. So if this and this are the same and this is in the route, that means that this is a query string parameter. This, you can see that there is no bracket here. This is just the route. I could do add order and then slash, and then I can do a bracket if I wanted to, but that's not what I'm doing here. I'm not specifying like where they can insert order request. So where this order request is coming from is actually from the body of the request. And so this web API knows to grab this from the body. And this is coming into us as a JSON format. So anyway, so we receive this, and it's then utilizing the information that the user sent, and it's placing it here. And I'll show you guys how to format this this JSON object in order so that our web application, our web API knows to read it. Because if they don't, they need to match, and if they don't match, if the JSON object doesn't match your object here, then it doesn't actually execute your function. So here's a little more example of kind of what I just talked about. So this is, the HTTP localhost, blah blah blah, the port number. This is the website URL, and then we have the controller route. So really, actually, this is the controller route, and this is the prefix. But just know that this is like the controller route. And then this right here is the method route. So if we go back, you see that this route right here belongs to this method. This is a route attribute. This is also a route attribute, but this is for a route prefix, which means that this will prefix any of these things with this route. And here, I have an example. So this would be that post request. And then here I have another example. This would probably be the get request. And, again, I have the website URL, and then I have the controller route. And because I don't have it like a method route in here, the one that matches is this right here. I don't have a method route. I just have a controller route. And because I don't have a route here, then it automatically takes the controller's route. And you have to specify the controller's route. And then here you can see I have the controller route and then the method route of 1. This is the ID specific to the order. So in this case, it would be calling this method right here because it has an ID, and it prefixes this with the route prefix of the controller. And this route prefix has to be above where your class goes. So here we have, add order again. And then here's another example that I have. So HTTP post. This will insert an order into the database. So this function and this function are the same, but they have one difference. Is that this doesn't have a method routing attribute, whereas this does. So let's say that you wanted to call these using a post request. You could use this to call, so this is create order, this is create order 2, the function names. So you would call this to call create order 1 using a post request. And then you could also do that same post request utilizing this. You could call create order 2 by using this this URL. And it's not specifying, the method route. And that's because there is no method route here. It's automatically taking the controller's route. HTTP put, this will update. This is put means update, along with patch. So patch and put are both like an update type of thing. And so if you send a request to this URL, remember, it doesn't have a route, so it would be the controller URL, the default URL. I could add a route if I want here. I would have to specify it though. But anyway, if you request this URL, or if you send a request to this URL using a put request, it would execute this function, and it would modify the order, and it would just do business logic in the backend, and it will return an order. And here I have a HTTP delete request. So this is a delete request. So we've gone through get, post, put, and now we're doing delete. So what a delete does is, it is what it is. It deletes. It's meant to delete data from your database. If you're going to be deleting, if you're creating a method to delete data, don't use a get request to do that. Use a delete request. Use a delete verb to do that. And I'm specifying here a route of what ID, what order ID do I want to delete. Notice I have HTTP response message here. And the function name is delete order. And again, this ID equals this. It's the same thing. And this is going to be sent through the query parameter, not through the body. And that's because of the route. And I'm specifying here with brackets. And I'll go over why I'm doing HTTP response message here instead of just returning an order. So here you'll see that I'm collecting headers. So headers are not safe. They can be seen by anyone intercepting your requests and your responses. But they're used to send secrets and stuff so that the API knows who you are. And here you can see that I'm collecting a header called secret. You can think of a header as a dictionary, really. And here I'm collecting a header with a key, called secret. And I'm trying to get its value right here. Now, if the value is not null, and then I wanted to grab, I do first or default, and then I check to see that it matches my secret. If it doesn't match my secret, this is my secret key, right? This is my secret. If it doesn't match that, then I return a response of forbidden. And I say, please provide the secret. Now, that's the reason why I'm returning an HTTP response message here, because I want to be able to return a response. I want to be able to return a status code. And the way that you return a status code is by returning a response and specifying the status code. So this lets whatever called my endpoint, my API, know that, hey, you need to provide the secret, and I'm forbidding you from entering my from making this call. There's a whole bunch of other status codes that you guys can use. There's like standardizations about what to use when, so just keep that in mind. But these are pretty popular ones. So anyway, so if the user did successfully enter the secret correctly, then we get the order. So here's the line. Let me get my little laser pointer here. So here we get an order by the ID that they submitted over here. So now if the order doesn't exist, so we'll try and get the order. If the order doesn't exist, we'll return them not found. And then we in the message we say order not found. And then if it does exist, continue on to the next one. So this function right here returns a Boolean. So we'll try to delete the order here. But if it can't delete it, then we return an internal server error because we weren't able to do what they wanted to do. Like something failed. So we return an internal server error status code, and we just return the message could not delete order. If all these three things succeed, then okay, we have been able to successfully delete the order. Send a response of okay, and return the order that we just deleted. And we got this order because of this. So that's how you can use headers to also send data. So you have three different ways to accept data through controllers. You have the query string parameters like this. So you have this route ID. And this can really be anything. You can name this like route bracket, and then ABCD, and then end bracket, and then here you could have a string for the parameter. You can do string and then ABCD, and now you're able to collect a string within the query string parameter. So like here, instead of one, you would do a string like hello world, and you could do something that outputs whatever, hello world. And so anyway, so we have the query string parameter. We have the body like this, where there is no query string parameter being specified here in any of these three functions. And then we have headers, and this is how you retrieve headers. And we'll go more into requests, responses, and headers here in the next video. So one last thing before I forget is, let me get my pen, my laser pointer here. So in your controllers, when you make requests, now this is kind of like in the HTTP request and responsive section / controller section. It's kind of in both. But anyway, so if you try to make a request to your endpoint, to your controller, using a post or put HTTP verb, it won't work. You actually need to go to this link, and you need to follow the instructions on that Stack Overflow page and add that stuff into your web.config. Let's see if I can. I have to. So here we go. So when you click that link, it takes you here. And what you'll need to do is you'll need to add all of this into your web config right below your configuration tag. So actually inside your configuration tag, but right below it. So this will allow you to for your controller to receive HTTP requests with post and put. So anyway, so if you guys like this video, hit the thumbs up. Subscribe if you want to get notified about any additional content that comes out. So all right, guys, thanks. Have a good day. Bye.